People who grew up as the youngest child in a big family carry a psychology that's almost impossible to explain to only children or firstborns. It's a mindset shaped by invisibility, observation, survival, and a type of childhood that forced them to become either completely self-reliant or dangerously attention-seeking. And yet those years built something that still shows up in how they think, manipulate, adapt, love, and fight for their place in any room. They grew up in a world where they were always last. Last to speak at the dinner table. Last to get new clothes. Last to be taken seriously. If you wanted something, you didn't just ask. You had to wait, negotiate, or find a way to make yourself impossible to ignore. And even that wasn't guaranteed. Psychologically, this created something rare today, a natural ability to read rooms, play social chess, and survive without being the loudest person there. People who were the youngest in big families still have this weird inner skill that says, I know how to get what I need without demanding it, even when no one's watching. But if you really want to understand the psychology of the youngest child in a big family, you have to look at what shaped them. Most of them grew up watching their older siblings get all the attention first. The oldest got responsibility. The middle ones got lost in the shuffle. But the youngest, they got leftovers. Leftover attention. Leftover rules that were already worn out by the time they came along. Leftover expectations. Their parents were tired. Not bad parents, just exhausted. By the time the youngest came around, the rules weren't as strict anymore. Bedtimes were suggestions. Homework wasn't checked as carefully. Freedom came easier, but so did neglect. Not intentional, just inevitable. And that's where the psychology gets interesting. Because the youngest learned early that if you want to be seen, you have to make noise. If you want to matter, you have to be memorable. So they became one of two things. Either the funny one, the charming one, the one who made everyone laugh to stay relevant. Or they became quiet, observant, invisible on purpose, learning to survive by watching instead of performing. This is why youngest children from big families matured in a strange way. Responsibility wasn't given to them. They weren't trusted with it. The older kids handled everything important. So the youngest learned a different skill. Adaptation. They learned how to fit into whatever dynamic was happening. How to read emotions before words were spoken. How to know when to stay quiet and when to push. If the oldest sibling was the leader, the youngest became the follower, the supporter, the one who knew how to stay on their good side. If the middle sibling was angry, the youngest learned how to de-escalate or disappear. They didn't grow up with power. They grew up learning how to move around it. And here's the part most people forget. The world they lived in forced them to grow emotional intelligence. They saw their siblings make mistakes and get punished for it. They learned from watching, not experiencing. They saw what worked and what didn't before they ever had to try it themselves. That kind of environment shapes a child. It teaches you that life has patterns, that people are predictable, that if you pay attention, you can avoid most of the pain your siblings went through. That survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the smartest. People raised as the youngest in big families learn to be strategic. Not manipulative in a cruel way, strategic in a survival way. Because they didn't have authority. They didn't have size. They didn't have seniority. What they had was personality, the ability to make people like them. And that became their currency. So they became charming, funny, likable, the one everyone wanted around because they made things lighter. Or they became watchers, the quiet ones who saw everything and learned being invisible was safer. Both paths came from earning your spot at the table. Being born last meant always fighting to stay included. That's why they feel different today. Not broken, just shaped differently. Their confidence comes from surviving without being in charge. They're good at parties, conflict, and reading people because they've been doing it since they could walk. They were the bridge, one foot in their siblings' chaos, one foot in the freedom of getting away with more. Hand-me-down toys, shared rooms, borrowed identities. But they witnessed what older siblings never could. They saw the family evolve. Now look at the new generation. Only children with all the attention from day one, every moment documented. They expect to be heard because they always have been. They didn't fight for attention, so they don't know how to exist without it. Social media gives visibility but also pressure. Their brain expects attention the world can't always give. That gap creates anxiety. Which childhood builds stronger adults? The one where you fight for attention or where it's guaranteed? Were you youngest, oldest, middle, or only child? If this made you think different, hit subscribe.